I'm very honored, and I thank very much Matthias and Thomas to invite me to talk a little bit about a topic that is maybe from one side getting a little bit under the wheels of outside because of the discussion about artificial intelligence. On the other hand, I believe that this is still a very, very important phase of development of whatever movie, games, whatever theaters you have in mind, and need to go from a text to images. So I would like to switch over to another camera because I then start my presentation. Let me see. Now, here. Yeah, so what I want to tackle today is the following. Why do we draw? And this is the question because of nowadays the discussion about artificial intelligence. Then, of course, my topic is storyboard. And what does it mean? What is a storyboard? What do I mean with storyboard, or what does the industry mean with it? Then, of course, I'm talking about storyboards and drawings. I will show some rules in drawings, just very basic, so you can get an idea that everyone can draw. I mean that everyone can draw. And then diving more into the storyboard with how do I begin when I'm sitting in front of a script, and what should I do first? Then approaching a scene, how can I, when I have a scene described in a text, in a script, in a motion picture script, how can I start with a scene? And then a little bit about camera. As you can imagine, that we are not talking about a storyboard for live theaters. We are talking about games, movies, and so on. So there's a camera involved. So we need to play with the camera. And of course, the most important point for me is then the last point, that is, how can I speed up my process of drawing? Because when you draw a storyboard, you need to be fast. Time is money, as we all know, and you're not creating artwork, you are creating just some scribbles, ideas to move on, and then later on it is wasted. Good, let's start. As you can see, I'm using Procreate. I think a lot of people using Procreate nowadays, and for me it is one of the most used software in my business, in my lectures, when I'm doing storyboard for the industry, when I do planning, even though now with presentation. I'm not the owner or have shares on Procreate, absolutely not, but it is such a great industry standard nowadays. It runs on an iPad Pro, and so you can carry it wherever you are. So why drawing? Well, you don't need to draw, but it helps. It helps a lot. And it helps to understand your world, what you see. And you start to begin to understand your world once you drew it. Because then you know how a tree looks like, a house looks like, a car looks like. And if you understand your world, then you can create a world. You can create a new world. And of course you can say, let's ask Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. They can create me worlds. Well, they can, but they will never create a world you have in your mind originally, because the artificial intelligence is taking away your decisions, your little detail, minor decisions, because they decide for you. So it's like you go in a restaurant and you want to have a nice dinner, and you look at the menu, and then you decide, today I would like to have a steak. you order a steak, but the steak will be done by a chef in the kitchen and with his recipes. That's artificial intelligence. No, it's human intelligence of the chef, but you know what I mean. If you go home and you bought your steak and you make it yourself with your recipe, that's you. And that is exactly the same like for getting your first ideas on paper with drawings, with sketches. Okay, so draw. You have to draw. That's essential. And it's fun. And it also is calming you down. It's relaxing. It's like a sport. It's like a brain sport. And so we will always use drawings. I'm convinced. And I think that is this one. So the next topic is what kind of storyboards. I'm talking about storyboards, and there are so many different views on what does it mean, what is a storyboard. I'm coming from animation business originally. I produced and directed a lot also live action. I founded Trickster, the company you might know, for visual effects. So I did 20 years hardcore visual effects. I produced 20 years, 11 Marvel movies, for example, the visual effects. And then I decided that I wanted to go back to the roots, back to design, back to drawing, and to lecturing, because this is something I really enjoy after doing all those projects. So I have to think about storyboards all the time. I show you those three sketches because those are the major steps of a storyboard. Here you have the thumbnail, the very first sketch when you see a script, and there's in the text written a sailboat on a lake sailing away. So you put down a thumbnail and okay, it might look like this. Then you have the production board, and with the production board you already decided that I need to be more specific. With this shot, for example, why do I need a storyboard here is if this is live action, you might have the problem with weather, with the sea, the lake, with so with water, with the weather. And of course, with the one who is sailing. And you know the sentence, never ever try to, or no, never try to reduce the budget or whatsoever, or take it easy if you have to shoot a movie or a TV with water outside in the weather or with kids or animals. This is very difficult. So this is a scene that might be very difficult because you have to follow with the boat or whatsoever. So what you want to plan is you just shoot this in real on a stage, and all the rest around is, for example, an LED wall. And all of a sudden you have to find out where's the light, where's the camera, where's the wind, and whatsoever. And you never ever can do this without a storyboard. And if you have to find financiers or partners or cast and crew or whoever to join the project, you need maybe some presentation storyboard. So you have a storyboard that is actually sometimes going into concept art as well. It is sometimes in color, and it is way more than in detail. It's a little dark, I think. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. Well, those are the three major different storyboards. Now I would like to talk a little bit more about your first thoughts when you start. The very first thought is what format is a storyboard? Because, and that is very, very difficult sometimes to answer. Is it for a movie screen or a TV screen? Or is it for Instagram? Or is it VR or whatsoever? So what is the format? And sometimes they say, okay, it's of course a movie, but for some distribution, we would like to have also Instagram postings. So you have to find a solution with your storyboard with those two framings in one. Of course, if it is a movie, this is your main frame. So this is what you have to answer first. And then you need to answer another question, like the genre. And with the genre, I mean, is it family entertainment? Is it horror? Or is it a documentary? And I don't want to list everything because there is a lot, of course. This decide if you go in animation, in live action, or in like an industrial video, it's always different how you plan your storyboard. And then you have, of course, questions of styles. I don't mean the style of drawing, of course, because the style of drawing is very personal. It's just informative. It doesn't have to do with brushes, colors, pens, material, nothing. You have to get your information, your visual ideas to your audience or to your customers. What I mean with the style is, do you have a lot of close-ups, all the time close-ups, or do you have always big cinematic landscapes? Or how is the editing? How fast is the editing? How rich is your frame? Things like that. And then, of course, what is it? Is it animation at the end? Or is it live action? Or is it heavy, sometimes, writing is not that easy. Heavy visual effects. Because if this is the case, you need 100% storyboard. If this is the case, you need 100% storyboard. If this is the case, it depends. Sometimes you do not need a storyboard. I'm sure for a tart art, you do not need a storyboard, only if there's a visual effects sequence in there. Good. Well, let's move on. Let's see what we have here. For example, I want to demonstrate you what I meant with the thumbnail. You got a script. You do not need to read the script. It's a script from North by Northwest, written by Alfred Hitchcock, and a very famous movie. It's fantastic. So you have this text, and here comes now the thumbnail into place. You see here, there's a farmer. What happened? What happened? So you put in a thumbnail. So sometimes you only see or you only can read the thumbnail by yourself. It doesn't have to do anything with presentation or whatsoever. It is just the very first idea of the shot. You do not take care of any kind of readable things. It is very, very crucial. Everyone can draw this. Everyone, and you can use stick figures. But the funny thing though is, even though you use stick figures and really like a kid is drawing. You nail down immediately a lot of information. Like, for example, this is a close-up. Okay. This is a full shot. Can see this already in such primitive little sketches. And so Disney said long time ago, with thumbnails, everything is set, and we can start into production because they're already showing so many things. I don't follow this, but this is what I'm calling thumbnails. Good, let's move on with how approaching a shot. I have now my thumbnails, I have the text, and I need to get organized. And how do I get organized? I get organized with this. You need to have a floor plan. A floor plan comes either from location scouting, you know the place, you went there, or production designers, or you make up your own floor plan because production designers are not hired yet. But with the floor plan, I mean, for example, like you have a street and you have maybe a little gravel road that crosses the street. And then you have maybe a truck standing here. And then you have here a field of crops. Then you have another car. And you specify the car maybe in a pickup truck. Something like this. And then you have an airplane. You see how primitive, but it's all about information, not about art or whatever. And then you put an arrow here, for example. You see there's an airplane coming. And then you have a person that stands here, for example. You see how small this is. It can be very small. And that is a scene from North by Northwest, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. And then you start with a breakdown. Like, for example, you want to have this shot when the airplane hits the gas tanker here, the truck. You want to see it from here. So you place here your first camera. And you can also put a number in, so you have this shot already. And then it hits the tank, and then you have, maybe a camera here. And then you have a very close camera here, because you want to see how the reaction is of Mr. Thornhill, who is right in front of the truck. And then you have a camera here, because this car comes along and stops, and so on and so on. And you see it gets maybe it can get pretty messed up, but then you make, of course, different layers and versions of it and so on. And there you have your floor plan. This is how it starts. Good. I'm rushing through this. I mean, I'm of course taking my students days and weeks through all those processes, and they have to learn how to see this and how to work with this. But I want to rush through here. And the next idea is to talk about the camera. As I said in the beginning, the camera is very important, super important. I'm coming here now. into my preparation of this. Okay, no problem. So camera. And for me, camera is, of course, the most important thing. We have eyes in our head and we look into our world with our eyes, our little cameras. And when we want to tell a story, we need a camera to record this. Most of the time, students and beginners, they do not see how important a camera is. And of course, with thumbnails, you do not need to think about that much about cameras. But immediately when you leave the thumbnails and you have your floor plan, you need to think about the camera. And just very simple to show you what is important. There's a horizon line. When you are outside in the desert, very obvious, or on the ocean, sometimes it's tricky because you do not see the horizon line. What is the horizon line? The horizon line is when I'm standing, here are my eyes, important, that's why I make a big head here. And the height of my eyes is the horizon line. If I look absolutely straight, or the camera. So if I look straight, then the horizon line is at the same height as I am. So I look. Okay, that is very important information. If I see this, I know that everything that is higher than this, like a floating whatsoever, I see it from underneath. Or if it is on the ground, I see it from above. Right? This is very important to know because all of a sudden your frame gets organized. Good. So what happens if I look down, for example? Okay, now I fall to the ground, right? But I want to speed up. So I look to the ground. What happens with my horizon? Well, the horizon here will then move up. So it's not anymore there or there. It has to move up. My body height is the same, but my horizon moves up. So if I have here some stones, I see the stones bigger from above. And the same, of course, in the opposite direction. If I look up, the horizon goes down. This is very important to know because a common mistake and confusion, very easy to solve, is if I see this horizon and I'm looking straight and someone else is coming and this someone else has the same height as I am, the eyes are exactly where the horizon line is, because this guy is the same height and I'm looking straight. And if there's another one back there, same height. But of course, in perspective, shrinks. Further away is smaller, as we all know. If someone is even more close, is closer, but not the eyes. This is very, very important. And you can see immediately how I organize my three guys here. And I know that I am, or of course, the camera is in this height. And I don't want to go too far because we do not have so much time, but you can imagine if I look up, everything, you know, goes down here, the horizon goes down, and all my guys are going down. Or I am going down with my camera, I go to my knees, you see, or I'm very small, I'm a kid or whatsoever, and then I have to look up, and then all those people are above the horizon and the other way around. Okay, next topic. That is also a very important topic. And you have frame. Okay, nothing is in the frame, nothing. A blank screen. So where to look at? And maybe I should switch off the. So now it's better. You don't see anything. Ah, you with the first dot, you have something in the screen, and you look there. You don't look here. You look there, right? So that's pretty important where you put the dot. If you have a line, at least you look at the line, but you do not know if I have to look here or here or here, unless there's something. Then you look immediately onto this part. And the storyboard, and why I love storyboard so much, is that if you have the audience looking here at this point, because there is something, I don't know yet, but there is something. So they look in this, on this place here. And then I cut to another scene. What happens? So I cut from here, you know, to this new canvas. And what happened is my eyes are still here, right? Because the cut comes immediately. There's no fade in, fade out or whatsoever. Comes in, I look into this direction and I'm looking into this. And either I leave the audience now on their own and say, well, sorry, but there is nothing. Because now I have something here. Then the audience need to rush with their eyes over there to look onto this plane that is coming now. And if you are sitting, you know, in the front row of a theater, and you have looked over there, and then you look and you cut, and then you see it, and all of a sudden the plane is coming, you have to turn your head. And that means muscles, neck muscles, whatsoever, and they have to move. And it takes time. But if you watch this on your iPhone, or what phone whatsoever, sorry, smartphone, you don't have to move your head. You just move your eyes a little bit. So this cut between that shot and that shot is important to know the size, the distances, and for what you are doing this. Just to give you a little hint of how important and how massively you need to think about editing with your storyboard, and why sometimes you get a presentation of a storyboard that looks lame, like, oh, boring. And when you would see this one-to-one in the cinema, you will fall off your seat because you can't follow. And that is all connected to style speed. And there's a lot more of those rules. My time is running out. I can't tell you everything. So I just pick up some ideas of how to do a storyboard. And it's not important to render nice images, because you might then have your ideas and then you can go to Midjourney or whoever to let do the pictures. This is not something that you can get from the artificial intelligence, I'm sure. So you have an image, right? Okay. But what do I see? Where to look at? So this is the opposite of what I showed you before with one dot. Here is not clear. Is it a cheese, or are those gravels thrown in the up in the air, or balloons, or what do I see? Where to look at? What is important? What is the important circle, ball, whatsoever? What is it? So you need to do something to guide the eyes of your audience. So one possibility could be you put them all in order, kind of. So you still have a lot, but what you do here is you kind of place them in an order that you get your audiences guided to one specific thing. So of course, one is you put this in the middle of your frame, but the others are kind of in a row and guiding your eyes onto this, what you want to see in the middle. It's difficult. You have to get into the composition here of your elements. So you might not want to do this. So there are other possibilities. For example, what you can do is I can show it quickly. I'm erasing all those elements. Because this is the one I want you to look at, but the others are still there, of course. They're still there. So what I'm doing is I blur them. And also maybe I highlight, like the fading a little bit. I do a lot so you can see this. It's maybe too much, but you get the idea. So I have still the other elements, but they are blurred. And I can now, of course, show you so many versions of how to get you organized in a frame with the same setup, the same things here, but doing it differently. For example, this is the little guy we want to see here in the middle. And this is moving. And all the other elements are not moving. So you immediately look onto this, of course, because we are following movements. Or what you can do also is you can say, well, let's take this one here, because you have still this confusing thing but you want to have a look here, you can add more details to this. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's just to give you an example or an idea. So only because this is more detailed and the rest not, you immediately look onto this element. Oh, it's now 10 to 7 already. Matthias, do I still have the time, or what do you say? Because the next presenter will start at 7, right?
Yeah, approximately. I mean, I had a few minutes of intro, so I would say if let's do like 5 more minutes and then a short Q&A. All right?
Yes. Okay. Then 5 minutes, because there's one would love to show you as well, because a lot of people say, wait a minute, it's so much work. I can't do this. Because, for example, I have here a shot and I want to show an army, 100 soldiers, for example. I cannot draw 100 soldiers. Of course not. I mean, you can, but then it takes a while. How can I do this? Very easy. I hide them. I just hide them. Like I have here in the front my soldier. And he's holding also something big whatsoever. I don't know. It's pretty ugly. And that's it. I mean, it took seconds, right? And because of this, here in front, you see, I'm covering already a lot of my space. And then I draw the other soldiers. And I'm telling you, it's not 100, there are 5,000 soldiers. You see them all. There are 5,000 soldiers. It says in the script 5,000. There we have the scene. It's done in seconds. And you have some air, some clouds. Maybe the war is already going on, so you have an explosion back there. And this is the trick. It's an old trick, of course, but it's a cinematic trick to cover a lot with your foreground. And that brings me to the next and the very last for this presentation, but there are a lot, and you can imagine. You have always, not always, but most of the time, you have 3 layers. You have the foreground, and you have the middle, or the stage, there where the most important thing happens, and you have the background. And keep this in mind, because the foreground is already, like this. And the background, not the middle ground, is then, like this. whatever it is, I have no idea. This is your middle ground where something happens. And then you have the background. I mean, I put here environment. It can be also, you know, inside of a room or whatsoever. It's not important. It gives you an idea of how you plan your scene and how you can, you know, get depth into it. And I do not have now time to play around with focus because, of course, as I did with this other thing, I can unfocus my tree trunk in the front and then the rest is in focus or whatsoever. And I can play with this around. But you can join me in other workshops where I talk about storyboards, if you like. That's my passion, because as a storyboard artist, you are the very first who is getting text into images. And now I try to switch my camera if this works. I don't know. How do I have it here? I really hope you got a little bit of an idea and that you do not need a lot of drawing skills to get your text into your first ideas of images.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks a lot for these inputs. This is mind blowing. It's like I want to start sketching again. All right, so a couple of questions. As I said, we do have a live Q&A with you. Afterwards, if you do have the time, you would of course be welcome on Discord. There's one channel for the questions and another channel where you specifically can write answers to if people are moving over to Discord with you. All right, but we do actually have a couple of questions from the audience, and I also have some prepared, but obviously the audience comes first. All right, so here we have a question from Cobus van Rooyen, and it says, Michael, I suppose this process was also followed for the Marvel movies. What technologies did you use to do those storyboards, or did you start it with the application you are sharing now? So that would be, I assume the question would be around, were you also using Procreate there?
Well, as there are so many artists working on such projects, and each artist has his own workflow and his own hard and software or whatsoever. There are still some artists with the very first thumbnails, they do it with pencil on paper in a script, as I do this as well, directly in a printed script with a pen. The application Procreate I used here became over the last couple of years such a industry standard because it is a very rich software. It is compatible with Photoshop and Krita and a lot of other softwares as well, with exchanging formats. And you have it on your iPad. So you have it almost everywhere, even in the cafe or beach or wherever you are. You can, I have an idea, you can immediately draw onto it. Why it is then iPad and not paper is because you can work in layers. And you can export this and you can continue on an animatic and so on. With Marvel, you have storyboard artists, of course, a lot in the very beginning, and they start like this with ever what they use. And after this, they start a process of, we call it pre-visualization. It's a very difficult word for me, pre-visualization, where then a lot of people, and there's one company very famous for this, the third floor in London, they're specialized. It's an outsource or frame store, and they do the previs. And so the entire movie for like Marvel, but also other movies, action movies, are pre-modeled, pre-animated, pre-edited They almost look like animated feature films, but then they start the shooting.
All right. Then I would say let's do a few more, a few short ones. All right. So there's a question coming from Angelica. What would be the best practices to cut from a scene to another that would work well for different screen sizes? For example, PC screen and cell phone. And I'm not perfectly, I understood the question myself, but I'm gonna reformulate it actually. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a personal spin of something that I also noted down myself. I think it's going in the same direction. And you just mentioned kind of the muscular movement of moving this, moving your head when you're sitting in front of the silver screen in the cinema, versus if you're on a tablet or on a phone, you just move your eyes. So the level of immersion is completely different. Would you say that working on storyboards can you do better storytelling on the silver screen or for the silver screen than, for example, for TV, because you don't have this physical immersion? Or what are the implications on the storyboarding process?
I would not say better. I would say in certain editing is different. The editing is a little different because it feels slower if you have a small screen format, and it feels faster if you have a big screen. And that is, I mean, nevertheless, there are a lot of other things as well, because when you watch it on a smartphone, you probably maybe be not alone. You have your headphone and you're sitting in the train watching it. And in the cinema, you're sitting in a dark room and you cannot do anything else than eating popcorn and watching the silver screen. So that's also why the experience you have with watching a movie is different in the theater. Like now, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, a big recommendation. You should go and watch it on a big screen and not on your iPhone. I know that it is difficult, the transformation. I mean, this is the question. Normally, you need to have it loaded with music, with sound effects, with fantastic sceneries, that you still like to watch it on a small screen, because you still have so much to watch, so much to look at, that it is still great, you know. But it can feel lame, of course, it can.
Yeah, and I think it was already also George Lucas who said that sound is 50% of the movie and of the experience. So sound obviously is a huge storyteller also.
Yes.
All right. So one more question. There were two small comments also. I'm going to read them. So there's from Yogashan said, just finished my storyboarding module for an animation bachelor. Didn't know I could use this for 3D environment design. So that's very cool. Something learned, right? And then there was a comment from Emmanuel that this was wonderful, learned a lot so far. Comment, so another question, comment. So kudos again. And also same from Mike. Shawbrook, super valuable eye-opener. And with that, let's look into the last question coming from also from Yogashan. How many storyboard panels should you work at a time when brainstorming environment designs?
Oh, that depends very much on what is happening, because you know, there are two different kind of numbers of drawings. It could be that with one shot, from cut to cut, with one shot, you need only one drawing, that's it. But maybe there is something happening within that shot, between those cuts, that is very important to know and to figure out and to feel and to get the timing. Then you need more drawings within that shot to get this done and to find out the right way, you relatively fast go over and do video editing. I didn't show this. This is another topic, because after you went through the storyboard, as I did here, you put all those images onto your video editing. And for example, if you want to keep working on an iPad, no problem. I use, for example, Luma Fusion. That's an editing software on iPad, also a cheap app. And you import your drawings into Luma Fusion, and then you can add a timeline, and you can add sound, because as Matthias mentioned, sound is so important. Layout sound, it can be anything, you know. It doesn't, because it's not done yet, so you have to invent something, and you can steal music and everything, because it's just for timing. It's not a copyright issue. It's just for timing, get the right feeling, put sound effects onto it, and dialogue, of course. Speak yourself the dialogue. It will fit in the time. It is just for layout, and then you know, I need more drawings here. I can get away with this drawing. And then also camera moves. You can start with camera moves and so on and so on.
Yeah, I guess, and you can also just go in and try experiencing it. I mean, it's fascinating. You made some of those storyboards for some of those drawings literally in seconds, right? So I guess you can, if you're training a little bit of becoming fast and precise about not necessarily the drawing, but the communication of what you want to tell or what you want to show story-wise, if you train this, I guess you can start iterating over methodologies really, really fast and try to also figure out what works for you, right?
Yeah. And
awesome.
Also one important thing is, a drawing is nothing worth. It is waste. A drawing, you need to see the drawing as, I can delete it immediately. It's not like, oh, I made a nice drawing, you know, I want to keep that drawing. No, it's not about that. I mean, you can keep the drawing, of course, but it is, you know, like, it is just transportation.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure for me, and it seems also for the audience. This was a fantastic opener. Thank you so much. If you do have some time to spend with the rest of the audience, please do so. 20-30 minutes, however much you would like. Otherwise, if there are more questions, we will forward them to you. Now, let's slowly get ready with Frank. I'm going to very briefly do a coffee break slide, just to take a little quick break, and we are back online basically in 5 minutes. So let's do a 5-minute break.